So welcome once again to Horizon Back to National Academy. In our last video we discussed fungi, and here we'll be talking about protozoa. We discussed fungi in our last video, and here we're going to be talking about protozoa. And your syllabus requires us to talk about the classification of protozoa with example, your motile and non-motile type of protozoa and their nutrition type. We want to talk about protozoa. First of all, we need to know what are protozoans. Not talking about protozoans, you need to know what protozoans are. Protozoans are animal-like protists, because you know your protistas are divided into two: the plant-like and animal-like, where your animal-likes are called protozoans and your plant-like are sometimes referred to as protoctista. Sometimes we refer to them as protista. So your protozoans, these are animal-like protists. These are animal-like protists, and for me to call them protists, that means they automatically belong to the kingdom protista. They belong to the kingdom protista. So there are basically four major subclasses of your protozoa, which are your sarcodina. You have your there are basically four major subclasses of your protozoans. These are your sarcodina, you have your mastigophora, your celiophora, and your apicomplexa. And your apicomplexas are the non-motile ones. So when you want to classify protozoans, there are basically four major subclasses, your protozoans, and I'll be talking about each of them in depthly, also giving you examples. So it's not enough for you to know that there are four major classifications. You need to know each and every one of them and with their examples and how they move. So now your protozoans, we have and I believe you also know that we are some shelled protozoans like your Achella vulgaris, your Diphygia acuminata, and your Loboritalia. These are some shelled protozoans. If you don't see them as shell, you can see them call it test or teca. So, and those are some examples of your shelled protozoans. And what they call them your foraminiferans. That's what they refer to them as. So now your protozoans, you have the sarcodinas. Your sarcodinas. If you don't see them call it sarcodina, you can see them refer to them as your rhizopoda. If you don't see them call it sarcodina, you can see them call it rhizopoda. And now some examples of this your rhizopoda. These are the ones that move via the aid of your pseudopodia. And you know pseudo means force, podia means feet. So if you join it together, they move with the aid of the force feet. So these ones move with the aid of pseudopodia. Your pseudopodia. And some examples of this one, you have your Achella, your Amoeba, and your Entamoeba. Those are the examples of your sarcodina. You have your Achella, you have your Amoeba, and you also have your Entamoeba. Specifically your Entamoeba histolytica, and you can also call this one your Amoeba protist. Now those are your sarcodinas that move via the aid of the pseudopodia. Now you also have some other examples of your protozoans, which are some other classification of your protozoans. You have your mastigophora. And this mastigophora is also called flagellates. From the name, you know that it moves via the aid of the flagella. Your mastigophora. And your mastigophoras, they move via the aid of the flagella, and that is why they also refer to them as flagellates. So they are basically of two major types. You have your zoomastigophora and your phytomastigophora. You have your zoomastigophora, which are the animal-like mastigophoras, and your phytomastigophora, which are your plant-like mastigophoras. So that they can ask you, give one example or give two examples of a zoomastigophora. You should be thinking about your trypanosoma. This trypanosoma, let me just call it trypanosoma species because there are various species. We have trypanosoma brucei, trypanosoma cruziei, trypanosoma rhodonisiae. There are various species. These are trypanosomas. This is what causes sleeping sickness. You have your leishmania. Your leishmania that causes leishmaniasis. mania. You have your trichonympha. Your trichonympha. You have your Gardae, your Garda limba, or let me call your Garda species. There are various other examples of your zoo mastigophora. So now your phytomastigophora, that's where you have your euglena. You have your euglena, which is autotrophic. You have your chlamydomonas. You also have your volvox. So the other subclass of protozoan that I'll be discussing now is your Coleophora. Or which you can also call your ciliates. From their name, cilia, you obviously know that they move with the aid of a cilia. And there are some basic examples that you need to know in your JUPEB level. You need to know your Plasmodium coli, which is the parasitic one. Then you need to know your Vorticella. You need to know your stentor. Then you also need to know that your Paramecium is also a Coleophora. Your Paramecium is also a Coleophora. So they can ask in your OBJ question, which of the following organism or which of the following protozoa move via the aid of a cilia? You know you are going to be looking for organisms that fall under the subclass Coleophora, which are your Plasmodium coli, your Vorticella. They can even ask you which of the following Coleophora or which of the following ciliates is a parasitic Coleophora. Like I said, Plasmodium coli is the parasitic one. Majority of them are free living. Your Vorticella, stentor, and Paramecium, they are all free living. Now the other protozoa we'll be talking about now is your Apicomplexa. And this is the non-motile one, Apicomplexa. Remember I said your Sarcodina, they move via the aid of your pseudopodia, your Mastigophora move via the aid of your flagella, your ciliates move via the aid of the cilia, and your Apicomplexa, they are non-motile, they can't move. So now your Apicomplexa, there are three major ones you need to take note of. Apicomplexa, your Toxoplasma gondii, that causes toxoplasmosis. Toxoplasma gondii falls under the subclass Apicomplexa. Your Plasmodium, species. There are various Plasmodium. You have your Plasmodium falciparum, Knowlesi, Malariae, Vivax, and Ovule. There are various species. So that's why I just wrote it here, Plasmodium species. And you also have your Imaria. So these are various examples of the protozoan, and I just said the subclasses under protozoan. Your syllabus require you to know about the classification with examples, which is what we just did now. Then from what I said, they also said you should know about the motile and non-motile one. You can now know that there are three major motile ones, which is Sarcodina, the Mastigophora, and the Coleophoras. Then the non-motile ones are your Apicomplexa. They can ask in your OBJ which of the following protozoan is a non-motile protozoan. You should be looking for organisms that fall under the subclass protozoan. And now they said you guys should talk about the nutrition type of your protozoans. So we just concluded talking about the subclasses of protozoan, and now the next thing your syllabus requires to talk about is the nutrition type of protozoan. So you want to talk about the nutrition type of protozoan. They are basically of two major types: your holophytic, which are your autotrophic organisms, and then your heterotrophic organisms. So you can classify them based on the fact that they are heterotrophic, and you can also classify them based on the fact that they are autotrophic, or you can call them holophytic. You can classify them based on the fact that they are autotrophic. And you know what heterotrophic and autotrophic means? When they say you are heterotrophic, that means you depend on other organisms for your survival. While for autotrophic, you can manufacture your food by yourself, maybe by photosynthesis. And an example of the protozoan that does that is the euglena. So for example, these heterotrophic organisms, that they can perform heterotrophism in various ways. They can be saprophytic. It can be saprophytic. It can be saprophytic. It can be parasitic. It can be parasitic. And when you're talking about parasitic one, your Toxoplasma gondii is a parasitic one. Your Plasmodium is also a parasitic one. They can also be mutualistic. They can be mutualistic. And some of them also feed via endocytosis. Like your amoeba feeds via endocytosis, and you know your endocytosis divided into two major types, your pinocytosis and your phagocytosis. Your pinocytosis is when they are taking in fluid-like structure into their cell. Then your phagocytosis when they are taking in substance like materials into their cell, and they form phagocystic vesicle or they form pinocytic vesicle. So for example, your amoeba, which is a sarcogena, your amoeba feeds via endocytosis. And like I said, endocytosis is divided into two. Your endocytosis is divided into two. You have your phagocytosis and your pinocytosis. Your pinocytosis deals with the taking in of fluid, and this one deals with the taking in of materials or substances. And when they take in those substances, they form a vesicle, and that vesicle you can call them phagocytic vesicle or you can call them pinocytic vesicle. So these are the various ways protozoans can feed in their nutrition. They can feed via heterotrophic mode of nutrition or autotrophic mode of nutrition, and I gave some various examples, and that's the syllabus required to talk about. So you can see it in your OBJ, which of the following protozoan feed via holozoic mode of nutrition, and you can see it which of the following protozoan feed via autotrophic mode of nutrition. You're thinking about all those plant like phyllophytes under your mastigophoras, like your euglena, your chlamydomonas. Those are the ones that feed via autotrophism. So that's all your syllabus required to talk about. So we've talked about the classification, their non-motile, motile type, and their nutrition type. In our next video, we'll be discussing viruses, their size, bacteriophage, virod, and prion. Please kindly subscribe to our channel and click your notification button to get informed whenever we drop a new lecture.